Today we're going to analyze a function. And anytime you do analysis for any class, you sort of have to decide what items you're going to use in your analysis. I have decided that these are the things that I want to use in our analysis of functions. Domain, range, symmetry, zeros, which are x-intercepts in this case, relative minimums and maximums, and intervals where the function is increasing, decreasing, and or constant. The domain will be given in interval notation and defined as the sort of usable x values. The range will be the resulting y values. It will also be given in interval notation. Symmetry we will define as even or odd. Because these are functions, they may have no symmetry at all, so even, odd, or neither. Even symmetry means with respect to the y-axis. Odd symmetry means with respect to the origin. Zeros, x-intercepts, right? So something 0. Relative minimums and maximums. So let me draw a little picture. So this particular function has some peaks and some valleys. That's what we're looking for with minimums and maximums. They are points where the graph either hits a peak or a valley. And what we say very formally is that in a small neighborhood, this circle is representing a small neighborhood. In a small neighborhood, there is a point that is the highest point where the points on the left and the right of it are both lower. That's a relative maximum. A relative minimum says in a small neighborhood, there is a point where the points on the left and the right of it are all higher than that point. So we're looking for relative maximums and minimums. This graph doesn't have an absolute maximum because it goes forever up. It doesn't have an absolute minimum because it goes forever down, but it does have some relative maximums and some relative minimums. The intervals where the function is increasing, decreasing, or constant. Okay, so then we need to look at our function and describe it like a roller coaster. So if we were walking along the x-axis, because we're afraid to ride the rides, so if we were walking along the x-axis, how would we describe what's happening? Well, starting from negative infinity until I get to about here, the ride is going up. It's increasing. From here until I get to about here, right, the ride is decreasing. From here until I get to about here, the ride is increasing. From here until I get to about here, woo, the ride is decreasing. And then from here, forever forward, it is increasing. So we want to identify this, this, and some point out here, because this is the interval we're increasing, this is an interval where we're decreasing, this is an interval where we're increasing, and this is an interval where we're decreasing, and this is an interval where we're increasing. Okay, so let's take a look at a graph and analyze it. Domain. Well, let's see. The x value, the usable x values. Well, since this is going up, all of these x values are going to get used forever, right? So negative infinity to infinity. All the x values get used. The range. Well, since it's going up, all these y values up here will be used, but the y values down here don't actually get called upon. They're not being used. There's no like saying, oh, yeah. When x is 1, y is something down here. When x is 157, y is something down here. It's not. It's never lower than -3. So our range is -3 up to infinity. Symmetry. Well, the y-axis is providing a very nice line of symmetry here. So we would say the symmetry is even. Then we have zeros. Oops. Where are we intersecting the x-axis? Looks like positive or -3, 0. Do we have any relative maximums or minimums? Well, I'm going to make a small neighborhood and see. It's like, well, that's an absolute that's going up. It's not. Okay, this looks like a possibility. However, on either side of this point, on the left side, there are points higher, but on the right side, they're the same. So that isn't a minimum. That isn't a minimum. That isn't a minimum either, because although on this side there are points higher, on this side they're the same. So I do not have any relative maximums or minimums. And then the intervals where it is increasing, decreasing, and constant. Okay, so in order to do that, I may need my little guy, imagine him walking along, right? Here there's a change. He's walking along, walking along, walking along. Here there's a change. He's walking along, walking along. Okay, so this is -2, and this is 2. So we would say that from -infinity to -2, they're going down. So they're decreasing. Oh, that looks like domain. All right. How about DEC? They're decreasing. From -2 to 2, right, from here to here, they're constant. And then from 2 to infinity, they're increasing. Okay, so this is the story of the graph. So as we're walking along, they're decreasing, constant, and then increasing. Let's try it again. All right, domain, x values. All of them are getting used. Range. Both ends are going up. So the up y values are getting used, but below -2, there's nothing being used. So -2 to infinity. Symmetry, not with respect to the y-axis. And if I turned it upside down, most of the action would be now on this side. So it would not look the same. So there is no symmetry. We want zeros. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, -3, 0, -1, 0, 4, 0, and 6, 0. We've got 4 zeros. We want relative maximums and minimums. So here's my small neighborhood. We have a relative minimum at -2, -1. We have, I know I drew it kind of quirky there, but we have a relative maximum at 1, comma 2. We have a relative minimum, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at 5, negative 2. And that's it. And now if we try and tell the story of what's happening here, let's see, they're decreasing until I get to here. They're increasing until I get to here. They're decreasing until I get to here, and then they're increasing. So my important numbers, negative 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So they are decreasing from negative infinity until I get to negative 2. They're increasing from negative 2 to 1. They're decreasing from 1 to 5. And then they're increasing from 5 to infinity. Okay. These are always given with parentheses because at the crossover points, it's neither decreasing nor increasing, in case you were wondering why I wasn't using brackets on some of those.